Welcome back, you beautiful souls, to I Love Balance. All right, so we're continuing with our soup 2 of the day after we have shown you how to make the vegetable seaweed stock and we did our wonderful previous green detox soup. Now we're doing our creamy broccoli and mushroom soup. So what we have here, we have the equivalent about 1.5 pounds of broccoli that I'm gonna be cutting up. So it's almost 6 cups of broccoli. There might be a little bit more, but we love broccoli, right? We have a whole stick of leek here. We have about a handful of basil and parsley that we're gonna add at the end only. And we have a whole tray of mushrooms here, of cremini mushrooms. We're also gonna be adding the seaweed vegetable stock. We're gonna be adding about 6 cups with a little bit more water because we have many vegetables. So again, same as our creamy detox soup earlier, I'm gonna start by cutting up the leeks, and that's what we're gonna start by sauteing in the pot first for about 5 minutes. So let's start the process here. Almost done. All right, we're gonna pick all of this up, transfer it to the pot, like this. And while we saute the leek on the oven, on the stove over here. So again, we're gonna add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. I like to do it by eye, just like this. I'm gonna put it on medium-high here, same as earlier. And I'm just gonna mix it up a little bit here. So exactly the same, nothing different so far. And then while this sautés lightly, we're gonna continue cutting up the rest of what we have over here. All right, so for broccoli, I actually find it easier to just cut the broccoli. So I'm just gonna cut them one at a time like this. Boom. My scissors are really good, so I could do bunches like that, right? Just like that. You want to separate them a little bit to give them a little bit more ease, cook a little bit faster, and as you saw with the immersion blender earlier, to make it easier to blend up. Just like this. So the beauty here in Canada is I have a compost bin where I discard these things so that it can go back to the earth where it belongs. And if you're somewhere else in another country, or you're somewhere where you don't necessarily have a compost bin, maybe you want to use it to fertilize your soil. Maybe you have a yard, maybe you have your own little garden outside. Something I was doing while I was in Nicaragua to help with the garden, I was blending up all of the compost, and I was blending it all up in a blender, and I was using all of those things as nutrients to put back into the soil. So I was physically doing it myself. I was putting it into the soil. I let it sit for 1 or 2 days, and then I started planting seeds. And I wasn't there to actually see them grow, but the owner in Nicaragua sent me tons of beautiful pictures, and the garden was really, really prospering. So it works. like that. So as you can see, we've got tons and tons of broccoli here. Boom. Just gonna keep that there, and I'm just gonna come stir it here because we can hear it. It's going wild. I really like the smell of leek. I know I've said that before, but you know, it's the truth. Excellent. We want to shake it up a little bit. We want to make sure that it doesn't stick and burn. We're going to come back over here. It's just been about 2-3 minutes. We're going to give it another 2 minutes. So in the meantime, I'm going to be able to cut the mushrooms. So I'm going to add some broccoli in a cup here. So as you can see, if you compress it, we've got about 4 cups here. If we add the rest here, we're going to have about 6 to 7 cups in total. Now for the mushrooms. And as you can see, I've taken the liberty of already rinsing everything before cutting it up. You want to make sure that you wash your vegetables before cutting it up. Just going to chop these up. Again, this is another soup that we're going to be blending up at the end. So it doesn't really matter how those pieces look. The presentation will be blended. And you know, as I mentioned earlier about letting the soup cool down before you transfer it to your, especially plastic jars, but even your glass jars. So as I'm preparing this, I'm letting our previous soup, our green creamy detox soup, actually cool down. So I put it in a big bowl here, if you want to come have a look. I just put it in a big bowl and I'm just letting it cool down here. So when it's cool enough, I'll be able to transfer it to jars. And in the meantime, we're being productive, we're multitasking, and we're getting stuff ready to go. So now the leek seems to be pretty ready. Yeah, excellent. Just like that. Oh, there's little pieces that burn. It's all good. There you go. And now I'm gonna add the broccoli and the mushrooms in. So let's put this in here. Go. Make it easier. Transfer it all over. Here and here. Et voila! So now we're gonna stir it all up. I'm gonna add the seaweed stock. So it calls for 6 cups, but because I have a little bit more veggies, I'm gonna put, let's measure, we've got 4 cups here. Let's bring it. We're gonna, gave us a little bit more than 1.5. So what I'm gonna do is add 2 more cups of water in here, of filtered water. Clean water. Oh, Camden. My friend mentioned earlier that the machine wasn't very creative because it says the same thing all the time. Yeah, about an extra 2 cups here. Just gonna, excellent. All right, here you go. Let's mix it up again. So we got the water and the seaweed stock. Everything just blends it well. If anything, I'm actually gonna add more because it's not all covered, so I actually want it to be covered. I'm gonna add a little bit more water here. Again, you have to sort of go by eye, right? Once you've done this a few times, you learn how to, what you like best. Sometimes people will like a little bit more liquid. Some people like less. Really, you have to learn how to know more about yourself and what you like and don't like. So here is a bit more. That satisfies me. It's also gonna give us a little bit more soup as well. I'm just gonna ramp it up a little bit higher, not all the way to max, but just about halfway, like the 8. And we're gonna add some spices now before putting the cover on top. So we're gonna grab our thyme again, and we're gonna add 3 teaspoons in. And as I mentioned earlier, I really am generous with my spices. 2, and the 3rd one here. Excellent. Back over here, and then this one, we're gonna add some black peppercorn and some sea salt by eye again. Here. You know, funny story, I was doing this once and the whole top came off and all of the pepper fell into my recipe. It was great. It tasted very peppery. A little bit of salt. Excellent. We're gonna mix it all up again. We're gonna wait to add the fresh spices at the end when it's boiled and then simmered for 10 to 15. So now, try and get it all immersed. We're gonna add the top on and we're gonna wait. I'm actually gonna set a little timer here for 15 minutes. And once the 15 minutes is over, during that time, I'm probably gonna mix it up a few times, but since we have 15 minutes of spare time, as we did earlier, as you can see, all the leftover of my juicer is in here. I'm gonna put the juicer back together and we're gonna make one of our other juices in the meantime. So we'll be right back for the end of this. We have our broccoli mushroom soup that is now over. I turned off the heater just about 5 minutes ago to let it cool a little bit while we were finishing up the juice. So now I'm just gonna add some extra spices before we blend it all up. So I'm gonna add a little bit of ground oregano. The recipe actually called for fresh oregano, but I couldn't find any in any groceries. So I decided that I would go with the spices, the dried spices instead, right? Sometimes you have to do what you gotta do. So we're gonna add just a little bit like that by eye. Just like that, excellent. That was about 1 teaspoon. And now we're gonna add the rest of the basil and the parsley that I chopped up. Excellent. We're gonna mix it all up properly. Just like that. And then the soup is going to be ready to blend. So same principle as we did earlier. My immersion blender here. And if you don't have one of these immersion blenders, you could always use your blender at home or even just a food processor. Make sure it's a glass one, because if it's plastic, again, it comes down to the plastic is going to leach into your hot food, and we don't want that to happen, right? All right, let's do this together. Excellent. So there's no more chunks in there. It's nice and liquid, and it smells absolutely amazing. So now, once we've done this, the goal is to wait for it to cool down once again, and then we could put it either in our glass or our plastic jars so that we could store it. I mean, if you're hungry right now, like I am, serve yourself. and then keep the rest. So this is actually good. It keeps up into the fridge for up to 7 days, and then you can store it as well in the freezer for as long as you want. So yeah, we're done. Our awesome broccoli and mushroom soup. And remember, the reason that we're doing all these different liquids, that we're doing the juices, that we're doing the soups, that we're doing the smoothies, is because the first 4 days of the protocol is a liquid diet, because it's allowing our intestines we're reducing inflammation within the gut, and we're also flooding our body with all these amazing nutrients. That's it, that's all folks. See you again soon.